Filmed it on Wednesday. And I edited it Wednesday evening. And the editing, one of the first things I did, I uploaded the clips and got my shot list out. And I numbered my clips by the shot lists, which was really, really helpful because basically I knew right then and there I could just drag down my shots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pretty much in order. Some of the shots where we had like different angles, I just labeled them 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, just so I had a different idea of where they went. That made editing really, really quick and really, not necessarily really easy, but definitely made it really quick. I went sort of different from my original plan because I wanted to start with a really conventional long shot and then go into the close-up. But what happened was, because of the way the lighting system was with regards to the his face becoming apparent, when I filmed the long shot, his face came under the light a lot quicker than in the close-up for some reason. So I started off with the close-up, and just as the light was beginning to appear on his face, then I cut to the long shot. And I used a lot of cues like that, like I used a lot of motion. So for example, the next action he did was he got his phone out, he looked at his phone. So I had him take his phone out of his pocket, or I cut as his arm was like slightly bent. Just the phone had just cleared his pocket basically, and I cut to another angle of the close-up of him bringing the phone up and looking at it to sort of. I found that making a lot of cuts in the middle of these actions. I did the same thing then when he put the phone away. I cut from the close-up of him moving it down, and then I cut to the angle that Travis came up with on his own, which was sort of like the profile shot around the corner, which again looked really good because then he sort of like looked towards where the camera was. But it's just this idea of cutting in the middle of actions, so like you don't have an action play out completely in one shot. So the same thing again, like this just became, every time I was editing, I was always looking for a marker, as it were. So like when Gethin comes around the corner and starts going towards the doors into Prospero, I had like 3 different angles that I could play with there. And what I did was, as he turned the corner, I cut there and turned to another camera and tried to find the part of the footage where he was more or less in the same position, so it wouldn't look like he traveled too many steps before the camera angle, because I wanted the camera angle all to be quite fluid. Okay, so and I think that I was quite happy with the way this sort of match-on action happened. Same thing with when he looked through the window. Now, some of the footage, I expected Travis to film me at the desk through the door window, and he didn't film that. And I wasn't there, obviously, because I was the subject being filmed. So I knew that we had the over-the-shoulder shot, so I ended up just filming using the over-the-shoulder shot to sort of get across this eye-line match with regards to what Mr. Jones was looking at when he looked through the window, i.e. me going through the papers. Didn't work quite as well as I'd liked because it was a much closer shot than where Mr. Jones was looking through the window, but it still gave the right impression. Like when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, you can tell that, you know, this is what Mr. Jones is looking at. This is what the man in the window is looking at. When he came through the door, again, I got the close-up. Travis, actually, I showed it to Travis when I'd finished editing the final version. He said he thought that his zooms were a little bit choppy. Thinking about it, I could probably play with the speed a little bit. I know if you slow a quick edit, if you slow it down, then you can slow it down on the computer in the editing software. So I might do that as another edit. Constantly tinkering around and playing with this edit. I've edited it 7 times, so I've got like 7 different rough cuts. But each time, I feel like there's little improvements being made. So for example, this basic, I knew that I wanted the last shot to be a continuous shot. I didn't have any special effects. We didn't have any fake blood. We had the gun, but I couldn't really show myself getting shot because there would have needed blood. So I knew that I needed Travis to film that from outside through the window in the door, and most people who have watched it said that they think that it works really well. So I'm quite pleased with that. Editing wise, like, so as far as organizing the footage and the clips and stuff, because I used the shot list from the very beginning to, you know, put a numeric value to my clips, the editing went quite well because I knew about things like match on action, eyeline match, and like use of lighting. That all worked really well. So I got that done. I got an edit done pretty quickly. It probably took me about 20 minutes to put the first thing together. Once I got that all done, I rendered a version of it. I saved the serif file. Then I started adding in music, and I chose, I had to download a gunshot sound, so I downloaded a gunshot sound. I couldn't be bothered to go through all the different music like copyright-free music, so I kind of did a no-no, kind of didn't. I used the first 30 seconds of a System of a Down song called Aerials. It's just the instrumental bit, and the first thing I did when I got it was I cut it down to just that instrumental bit, getting rid of all of the lyrics and stuff. Technically, legally, you were allowed to use something like 2% of a song without a copyright, and that's what I've done. So I'm not infringing any copyright law. I learned that at a Nickelback concert. So anyway, once I got the music on there, I took a lot of time playing around with sort of like where the music would match the action. So for example, I knew I would have to loop the song a little bit, and that I wasn't worried about that at all. So I started off, the music's playing quite low underneath, and then some of it just happened coincidentally. Some of the notes changed as actions were happening, which just like was a nice surprise. Another thing that came out by accident was not necessarily by accident, but I had to loop the song again as Mr. Jones was walking towards the door, and it just so happened that the beginning of the song is quite quiet, as most songs are, and this quietness sort of came in just at the time when he started creeping towards the door, so it was quite nice how the music went down as his sort of behavior became a little bit more sneaky and stuff. When I put the song in the second loop, I had to slow it down because I didn't have enough music, and I didn't want it to be overly monotonous and overly repetitive. So I had to slow the music down, and I just slowed it down enough so I could watch it stretch across to meet up with the footage. I had the gunshot in, and I wanted to have a little break from the music. So one of the things that I did was I had to change the pans, I had to change the levels of the music. So I brought the volume down a little bit as it was getting towards the gunshot anyway. I also played around with the music because I wanted to make sure that I was getting the drum beat at the end of the music clip goes doot, 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 sort of builds up tension. I wanted that to sort of lead into the gunshot, but I didn't want it to go completely into the gunshot. After the gunshot, I had the music come in again and again, more or less from the beginning of the song. I had the music come in a little. The music came in for the third time, so when I put in my third lot of music, it was at regular speed. To sort of get across sort of like the haste, he grabs the files and he leaves. And because it's all one shot, I think that the fact that the music comes in quite loud sort of works quite well with the music. And again, one of the things I wanted to do was I trimmed the music clip, instead of from the front, I trimmed it from the back. So what I meant was I wanted to end on those same drum beats. As he walks off, I wanted the doot, 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 doot sound. So I clipped the song at the end, and then I chopped it off at the starting point so it would meet up with how much footage I had left. If I get a chance to put some screenshots of what I've done over top, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Other effects that I changed, I had to crop. I mentioned this in my filming log. When I reach into the bag, the camera's a little bit far away from me, and it catches the other side of the desk where Mr. Jones was actually standing. So I had to crop that out. I used the crop tool and just cropped out a little bit on the left-hand side as I was looking at the picture. So basically, there's me. Part of me is cropped out, and the desk is cropped out because. And I stretched it so that footage would then fit in the screen and it wouldn't look like it had been cropped or anything. And it worked quite well. Some of the footage that was... I wanted to keep the footage that was dark, like when Mr. Jones was in the shadows. I wanted to keep those shadows as they were, so I didn't play around with the exposure or anything on that too much. But I did change some of the stuff of me in the room because I wanted to make it a little bit brighter. So I just put on a brightness effect. I just brightened it, just dragged the effect from the effects box and dragged it over some of the footage that was inside the classroom because I think it was a bit darker in the room. And I think that it worked well. I didn't because we'd set the footing, we'd set the camera. Well, I'd set the camera settings to make sure that they were right for the lighting that we had. Didn't really have to play around with the lighting too much. And I did notice that some of the footage that I did make a little bit brighter, it did almost overexpose it. So I've got a couple of edits where things are not necessarily overexposed, but for example, some of the lines that are in the window, in the door, they sort of seem to fade in and out because of the brightness. So I might remove that effect again, I'm not sure. The last sort of tinkering I did, once I got the music, took a little while, and I did like 3 or 4 edits with the like where I made little tweaks to the music. Sometimes I put a little bit of music underneath the gunshot. I took that out on another edit because I didn't like it. I played around with how slow the music was the second time it came in. I had it a little bit too slow, and it sounded a little bit warbly, so I removed that, and I sped it. Basically, if I could have had the music going at a consistent pace the whole way through, insofar as like I didn't have to play around with it, I wouldn't have, but I had to, so I did. Any other changes I did in the editing? Editing took a couple of days, but was, I think editing has to be a labor of love. You have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy editing, then you're going to do it quick. I could have edited it in 5 minutes because we had I could have put in like 3 clips, boom, 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 done. One of the things I did, I put in my production logo, 4 Pints Productions, which is a little production company I created for myself. I created the logo ages ago. I found and saved the 1, 2, 3, 4 test pattern type thing. I found a sample BBFC opening, put that in because I thought it made it look a little bit more real, professional, I guess, sort of thing, like what you'd see in the cinema. So I stuck that on. I stuck in the 1, 2, 3, 4 countdown. I had a 5, but I decided it worked better if I went from the 4, if I faded the 4 into the 4 in the 4 Pints logo, which I thought looked well. I put in 4 Pints Pictures Presents as a title. I had a different font first time, but I didn't really like it. It didn't work because I wanted I wanted a very basic font for all the different titles that I put in. Put in the title 4 Pint Pictures Presents, changed it from red to white to match the rest of the titles. I put in the order of the titles, directed by myself, written by myself, edited by myself, filmed by Travis Doherty. I always tried to put the credits down towards the bottom so they wouldn't be too obtrusive. You could still follow the effects. And I also tried to put them in a place where they wouldn't be in the way of any sort of important mise-en-scène. So basically, wherever there was a little bit of free space towards the bottom, whether it was the right-hand side or the left-hand side, that's where I put the titles. What I thought was going to be my final edit with the titles ended up not being, because I misspelled edited. I put in an extra I, so it was editide, which I had to remove because I just couldn't have that in there. And that's about it. That's my editing log. 15 minutes, almost 16 minutes talking about the editing. That's how much I liked the editing. All right, see you later.